Anger over a petrol price hike has sparked protests and looting across Mexico. It has resulted in 4 deaths, the ransacking of 300 stores and the arrest of more than 700 people, according to officials. The combination of blockades and looting is threatening the supply of basic goods and fuel. It's not just happening in the state of Veracruz, it's across the whole country. What is curious is that it started in a spontaneous way. The president defended the decision to increase prices by 20%, making the cost of a gallon of petrol almost as high as the daily minimum wage. In the whole world, the price of petroleum increased up to 60%. This, in turn, has increased the international price of gasoline, which affects us directly because for several years Mexico has imported more than half of the fuel we consume. The price hike is part of a gradual year-long deregulation of the energy sector and comes as Mexicans are already battling rising inflation and a weak currency.
Tear gas was fired in Peru as police clashed with lorry drivers protesting at road toll charges going up. Residents of northern Lima were also demonstrating at the installation of toll booths on a stretch of road, meaning they have to pay to come and go from their own neighborhood. As tempers flared, arrests were made along the North Pan American Highway.
On Friday, the UN announced that in Syria's capital Damascus, where 5.5 million people have had little to no running water for 2 weeks, children are at risk of contracting waterborne diseases. On December 29th, the UN revealed that Wadi Barada and Ain el-Fijah, the capital's 2 main water sources, had been disabled by deliberate targeting, although the peacekeeping coalition declined to say which of the warring sides was responsible. Jan Egeland, the humanitarian advisor to the UN Syria envoy, said in a statement on Thursday that denying people water or deliberately sabotaging water supplies was a war crime. A UN request to repair the badly damaged water facilities has met with a whole web of obstacles, including approvals from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the local governor's office and security committee, and the 2 warring sides, according to Egeland.
Now, reports have emerged over the last week that refugees have begun returning to the previously decimated Calais refugee camp in France. The site's clearance in October was praised as a huge success at the time by authorities. But now hundreds of people are believed to be making, quote, secret camps around the area. RT's Anastasia Churkina reports.
is where the infamous jungle used to be, home to thousands of people living in tents. Today, it looks like it never even happened. For French officials, the huge demolition process that took place became a success, a sort of out of sight, out of mind. But is it really all so simple?
The problem is just become more invisible. The dismantling of the jungle has actually made things worse. You don't see people. You know why? Because they're scattered everywhere. Before you saw several thousand people in one spot. Now they're everywhere. Have they gone away? No.
We're now about 45 miles away from Calais, trying to investigate the existence of smaller camps. We're approaching one of those now in Noirfond to see what the situation is there. You can see there's a couple dozen tents here, but we have been speaking to volunteers who have come here, who've said in recent weeks there have been as many as 200 people settled here. So we're going to see if we can talk to anybody here now. Pardon? Est-ce qu'on peut parler avec vous, s'il vous plaît?
Don't make picture, right, please.
Pardon, monsieur? Est-ce qu'on peut parler avec vous, s'il vous plaît? Non? Sorry, we're journalists. Is it okay if we talk to you a little bit?
No journalist.
No journalists?
Yeah.
Is there anybody who can talk to us here?
Yes. We need to talk journalist.
One of the situations here is that people from here, based in this particular camp, were potentially smuggled to get to the UK where they want to go. And obviously, that's one of the reasons that we've been told these guys are very aggressive and don't want to speak to journalists, and we're going to try to get going. And so why are you here? Do you want to get to the UK?
Yeah.
So you try to get in cars?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
It is run by the smugglers. You pay 500 euros to live in the camp and have a smuggler open the door of a lorry however many times as you need. So some people have been there for a year.
On a nightly basis, the people staying here try to get to lorries over there to get eventually to the UK.
It's a worldwide problem, not only in Calais, certainly not only in France. So it's all together in Europe. We've got to work on that situation.
Reporting from the north of France, Anastasia Churkina, RT.
Scientists say the large sheet of ice about to break away from Antarctica will be one of the largest breaks ever recorded. The sheet of ice, labeled Larsen C, is currently attached to its parent shelf by 12.4 miles of ice. When it splits, the crack will produce an iceberg approximately the size of Delaware and will significantly change the landscape of the continent. One researcher told CNN the huge iceberg could destabilize the remaining sheet of ice and cause sea levels to rise.
Every flamingo species in the world has evolved to live in some of the planet's most extreme wetlands, including caustic soda lakes, hypersaline lagoons, or even high-altitude salt flats. These environments are hostile to nearly every other form of life, but thanks to the flamingo's tough skin and scaly legs, as well as their incredibly resilient and unique stomachs, the animal flourishes in these deadly conditions. However, the number of lesser flamingos in the wild is already decreasing each year, as wetland habitats have been polluted by agricultural chemicals and sewage, feeding and breeding grounds have been disturbed, and declining habitats have led to mass starvation.
President Obama is none too happy with House Republicans trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act. In a recent statement, the president called the plan reckless and irresponsible. The Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, was a marketplace plan put in place by the president not long after he had taken office in his first term. Republicans and some Americans, however, have complained about the plan's downfalls, such as high premiums and forcing people to have health insurance. In a piece published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the president wrote, "Rather than jeopardize financial security and access to care for tens of millions of Americans, policymakers should develop a plan to build on what works before they unravel what is in place."
One of Osama bin Laden's sons has been added to a U.S. counterterrorism blacklist. The U.S. Department of State labeled Hamza bin Laden as a specially designated global terrorist on Thursday. Individuals on this list are said to pose a serious threat to Americans and U.S. national security. Hamza bin Laden has gone under the radar for the past several years. He appeared in several al-Qaeda videos as a child, but video footage of him as an adult is rare. Hamza bin Laden is now believed to be in his mid-20s. His designation on the list means the U.S. government believes he's actively engaged in terrorism. In 2015, he was officially declared a member of the al-Qaeda terrorist group. And in 2016, he released an audio message calling for Syrian jihadists to take action to liberate Palestine. Some thought that could mean he had risen higher in the terrorist organization. That same year, he released an audio message titled "We Are All Osama" that threatened revenge against the United States after the death of his father.
35-year-old Sibomana Deo works as an accountant at a local hotel here in Bujumbura.
When I first came to Bujumbura, I was in university because I had to work in order to put food on the table. I took up a job as a teacher while still in school. Then I got this job when I graduated.
Since April 2015, jobs have been hard to come by. Sibomana counts himself lucky.
When the riots were going on, I was here at the hotel, just watching. Life was tough then.
At the end of the day, Sibomana returns to his two-roomed house, where he lives with his wife and 2 sons.
Life has changed since then. Before, a 2-roomed house like this would cost about 80,000 Burundi francs. Today, that price is what you get for 1 room.
Though poor, Burundi was known to be one of the cheapest countries to live in within East Africa. This seemingly affordable life is one of the qualities that encouraged people like Alan Mwati to relocate years ago.
Now, because of political instability, I would say that, so there has been a reduced movement of people in terms of, trying to move with their businesses. Yeah, especially, of course, we need to understand the fact that most Burundians get their commodities either from Tanzania and Uganda. So there has been a kind of, that movement has been affected.
Information Liberation reports UK state forcibly indoctrinates schoolboy for saying Muslims are trying to take over. That's right, he had the wrong opinion. So they forced him to go to a mosque and change his opinion. You see that happening in the Netherlands, school children being forced to go to a mosque. If their parents refused to allow that to happen, then they were investigated. We've also got Slovenian bishops lament chapel desecration. This is out of Catholic Culture. The spokesman for the Slovenian Bishops' Conference has issued a statement lamenting the January 2nd desecration of a mountain chapel in Slovenia, an incident in which the words Allah Akbar were sprayed on the outside walls. The nation of 2 million is 58% Catholic. So again, another incident where cultural enrichment is invading Europe and making itself known. We have massive attacks going on in Germany in regard to Germany's oldest church being set alight on New Year's Eve, fireworks being thrown at each other. This is the cultural enrichment we've been told we have to tolerate.
The historic winter storm is currently forecasted to deliver heavy snow in some areas of the southeast in the United States, while freezing rain will make for dangerous driving conditions in others. Forecasters say sometime after 2 p.m. Friday afternoon, snow will start falling in Charlotte, North Carolina, where 4 to 8 inches of snow is possible. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, 2 to 4 inches of snow and sleet are expected to begin Friday afternoon, with the heaviest falling overnight into Saturday morning. Up in Norfolk, Virginia, an even heavier dump of snow is expected, with 6 to 12 inches and sleet possible, starting after 8 p.m. Friday.
A transgender man is suing a Catholic hospital for refusing to perform an operation that was part of his sex change. John A. Conforti filing a discrimination lawsuit against St. Joseph's Medical Center in New Jersey for refusing to perform a hysterectomy. The hospital citing religious reasons. Even though he had the procedure done at a different hospital, Conforti is still suing. He says he doesn't want anyone to go through what he did.
On Thursday, a spokesman for the military has said that the U.S. Army has taken new steps to make it easier for Sikhs, Muslims, and other religious minorities to obtain an approval dress code to dress and groom themselves according to their religious customs while serving in the military. In a memorandum this week, Army Secretary Eric Fanning revised the uniform policy to set appearance standards for people looking for religious accommodations to wear beards, turbans, and headscarves. The memo says that the approved religious accommodation will continue throughout the soldier's career and cannot be revoked or modified unless with the approval of the Army Secretary.
Our regular discussions have set what I believe is a rock-solid foundation for long-term trilateral cooperation that remains central to the defense of our shared interests and the protection of our shared ideals. Together, we have strengthened a trilateral relationship that is strategic in value. We share a common purpose in addressing the region's most acute threat, North Korea. The United States is committed to protecting ourselves, defending our allies, meeting our treaty obligations, and providing extended deterrence guaranteed by the full spectrum of U.S. defense capabilities. In the wake of accelerating demonstrations by the DPRK of its illicit nuclear and missile programs and capabilities, we continue to work together with partners around the world to put extraordinary pressure on the North Korean regime, sustained, comprehensive pressure. We are delivering tangible benefits for all of our people. This past year saw the unanimous passage of UN Security Council Resolutions 2270 and 2321, as well as coordinated actions imposed by our three countries, which increased international sanctions on North Korea to unprecedented levels and sent a very clear message that the international community will not tolerate a nuclear North Korea and that the Kim regime will face ever-increasing consequences for its callous and reckless nuclear and missile pursuits. Our three countries are committed to seeing the UN resolutions implemented fully by all countries. And our efforts have had real, practical effects.
Well, Russia has sharply criticised an annual defence spending bill signed by US President Barack Obama last week. Moscow calls the move, allowing the supply of surface-to-air missiles to Syrian opposition groups, a hostile step. Artiz Murad-Gazdiev explains the concerns.
Man-pads, man-portable air defence weapons. Incredibly sophisticated, expensive, but it does exactly what it says on the box. It shoots down aircraft, particularly good against helicopters, low-flying aircraft, and passenger jets. Plenty of Russian passenger jets flying all over Syria. The United States wants to send man-pads to Syrian rebels, moderate ones, once it's found them. And Moscow is concerned.
Washington committed to separate the rebels from the terrorists, but didn't cope with the task. So how is it possible to arm those people if you don't even know who will be on the receiving end, terrorists or so-called moderates? Today you'll supply moderates with man-pads. Tomorrow they will defect to the extremists. That has happened in the past.
Sending man-pads to Syria is one thing. Making sure that the right people get them and keep them is entirely another. And that's a point that the United States has failed on before.